Some people's biggest fear is drowning. So when people think about blacking out underwater, it scares the living hell out of them. This is not a video about how to save somebody from a blackout. This is a video about, if it happens, what do you do next? This is a video from an athlete's perspective. Because if you're a competitive freediver or an aspiring athlete that wants to be a competitive freediver, it's inevitable that at some point you might step over that line. But once the danger's over, the real frustration can happen if it becomes a repetitive cycle. If you blacked out and you're stuck in a repetitive cycle of blacking out, I'm going to tell you what I did to break that repetitive cycle. If you're training for a competition and a few days before the competition you black out, I'm going to share what I did so you don't have to black out in competition and you also don't have to give up on the competition. If you haven't ever blacked out, great, but still pay attention so that you don't ever get stuck in this repetitive cycle of blacking out. I'm also going to share some common pitfalls of thinking that might get you stuck in one of these repetitive cycles. Watch this video and you'll have an opportunity to learn from my mistakes if you wish. Hey everyone, my name's Tori. I'm a professional freediver, deepest human in the Western Hemisphere, for now, and I have some experience with blackouts. Okay, so spoiler alert, you gotta rest, but how much rest? You're like, Tori, you're making an entire video just telling us to rest. No. I'm going to tell you how much to rest. I'm going to tell you how I came to that solution and what I had to go through just to learn how much to rest. Because believe it or not, there was a lot of trial and error that went into figuring this out. And if you pay attention, you don't have to go through the same thing. Okay, here's the deal. If you black out, take a week off, 7 full days. And if your schedule allows it, take off 2, even better. But for the really stubborn freedivers, we're out there. At a minimum, take 4 to 5 days off. But seriously, if you can take off a week, do it. Because here's the best part. When you come back, you won't have to backtrack. You won't have to shave off meters or start from scratch all over again. You can come back just as strong and even stronger. Your body didn't forget everything you learned. Your nervous system just needs a break. Now, if you're wondering why this works and the story of how I learned this the hard way, let me explain. At first, I thought my issue was depth related. I figured if I was blacking out at 96 meters, I could take 2 days of rest, go back to 60 meters, and slowly build myself back up again. In fact, most people might think that, but wrong, because the cycle would always repeat. Maybe 5 to 7 dives later, I'd black out again. Why was this happening? You see, even if 60 meters feels easy, even if my muscles can handle it, even if I'm mentally ready for it, it's still taxing on the nervous system. Whether you want to admit it or not, even diving 10, 20 meters is still taxing on the nervous system, as easy as that might be. When you black out underwater, you're overloading your CPU. Your nervous system has reached its limit and it shuts off. You've unlocked a kind of forced meditation feature in freediving. But unlike a computer, you can't just hit reset and be back online in a few seconds. Your nervous system doesn't work that way. It needs real time to recover. So if you're taxing your nervous system consistently, even with these more shallow dives, you're still taxing the nervous system. You're building up this residual nonsense over time. You're taking the dive with you after the dive kind of stuff. If you never give the nervous system a break, it'll never get a break. Okay, let me share with you the experiences that I've had that back up everything I've been telling you. Let's go back to 2022. This is when I found myself in a relentless cycle of repetitive blackouts. Like clockwork, I was usually only 5 to 7 dives from my next blackout. And I did everything I could, I thought, to stop it. I took 2 days off, I took 3 days off, I shaved back meters, I adjusted my dive plan, changed my technique, I adjusted little tiny details. Nothing worked. I kept blacking out. I asked everyone I could, people with more experience, people I trusted. I think one person actually recommended this, but I overlooked it because it was the last thing I wanted to do. I didn't understand the full concept of the nervous system and what I'm telling you now. So I kept diving. 2 days off, 3 days off, diving, shaving back meters. I had a competition coming up that I had been training for the better part of the whole year. And I was about 3 weeks away from this competition. So that's why I had a very training steady mindset. Any competitive freediver can relate to this. And I didn't want to take off too many days because I thought I would lose my progress and my adaptation. So I kept pushing through, and about 5 to 7 dives later, I'd black out again, and again, and again, until I finally threw my hands up in the air. I gave up. I was exhausted, frustrated, and sick of blacking out. It's a terrible place to be because you're not sure if you're actually training or if you're just stress testing your dive buddies at a certain point. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be the one that the dive buddies are scared to safety because they know something's going to happen. It's a terrible place to be. I didn't even stop as a strategy. I stopped because I was mentally and physically done. I took 2 full weeks off. Not because I wanted to, Not because I planned it, but because I just couldn't do it anymore. What happened next shocked me. I went back to the water expecting the same kind of thing to happen. Expecting I'd black out again. Thought I was forever going to be in this cycle. But guess what? I didn't. In fact, I had some of the best dives I've ever had in a long time. And I ended the competition with a continental record, with a 102 and 103 meter dive. I'd like to say that's when it hit me. That's when this stopped becoming a mystery. But it was over a longer period of time that I finally started to realize what had actually happened there. This wasn't a random cycle that I was just trapped in. My nervous system had finally, fully reset. Do you think it's any coincidence that I took 2 weeks off and all of a sudden my blackouts just disappeared? Absolutely not. That was the solution. But here's the thing. Most people don't want to take 2 weeks off. Maybe they feel like they can't take 2 weeks off for whatever reason. So what happens if you black out 3 to 4 days before an actual competition that you've been training for? Well, I have a theory for that as well. A theory that worked perfectly for me because that did happen at the pinnacle of my training again, many months down the road. It was very traumatic. This was the first time I had blacked out since stopping that repetitive cycle. I wasn't entirely sure what to do. So I thought to myself, I don't have 2 weeks of rest. The competition is in 3 or 4 days. I barely have 3 days to rest. Well, what do I know from my actual experience that I lived through? I knew that at the depths I was diving, if I continued without rest, I was probably 5 to 7 dives from my next blackout. With that in mind, I took the 3 days that were given to me for rest, and in almost every competition, you're not going to be diving 5 to 7 times. In the longest competition that exists, maybe you'll dive 6 times. So in most competitions, you're going to dive 2, 3, and maybe 4 times. If I knew I was going to black out within 5 to 7 dives, let's just stop training altogether, take the 3 days of rest that I have, make sure that each of my next dives are the ones that happen in competition, not in training. If I only have 5 to 7 dives until my next blackout, based on the depths that I'm doing and the experience that I have, let's just eliminate the amount of deep dives I have to do moving forward. And in this case, I had 2 dives in competition that I had to do. So I took the 3 days of rest and I did the 2 dives in competition and nailed it. And then I took my rest. So basically, if you're competing soon and you can't take a full rest, manage your dives wisely and make sure the only dives you do are the actual competition dives ahead. I understand how niche of a topic this is and how very few people this will apply to. But everyone that gets in the water is genuinely scared of this happening at one point or another. Whether you get in the water, whether you're a competitive freediver, or whether you don't get in the water, you've thought about this happening. So I figured this was worth making a video on. And if you're a competitive freediver, we are few, but that few is still many. This was my approach to ending a cycle of blackouts that felt like it would never quit. And it was one of the most frustrating things I've ever experienced in freediving. The answer is simple, but still complex in the trial and error that it took me to get there. Unfortunately, I have other injuries in freediving. Some are still a mystery as to how they happened. Some I actually have a solution for. If you're interested in the mysterious event of how I went from an elite athlete to being half paralyzed, check out the video over here. On another note, and on another occasion, it was pretty obvious, especially in hindsight, the things that contributed to a mysterious phenomenon known as decompression sickness. If you're interested in those mistakes and how to not repeat them, click on the video over here. Until then, I hope you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you enjoyed it, and hit the like button if you learned something.